I want to share with you a community group coaching call that we just did, mainly focusing on a fully raw plant-based diet geared towards recovery, healing, muscle growth, things like that, right? So we went meal by meal, food by food, and went through all of the key amino acids, key proteins, vitamins, minerals, types of fiber, food choices, things like that. We went into real detail on how to put this thing together to maximize recovery. And the reason why I wanted to focus on this was so important, because this is the key towards improving your blood pressure, your blood sugar, your liver health, your kidney health, balancing your hormones, right? So if you're a man who's dealing with low total testosterone or low free testosterone, or you're dealing with an enlarged prostate, low libido, things like this, or you're a woman dealing with low progesterone, low estrogen, or a significant imbalance between the two. You're dealing with maybe adrenal fatigue, thyroid issues, diabetes, fatty liver disease, all these different types of things. This is really important, right? To have this kind of healing and medicinal diet. And there are some very important key nutrients that facilitate that. So we got to bring down the stress and have a plan that's really geared towards improving sleep quality, right? Specifically maximizing deep sleep, where all the recovery happens, where all the building happens, right? So I wanted to share that with y'all here. Your body is in two different positions, right? Either your body is fighting against stress, and as a result of the fight against stress, this can lead to more pain, higher blood pressure, higher blood sugar, body fat gain, muscle loss, things like that. That's one position that you could be in. Another is basically your body is primarily focused on progress, building muscle, dropping body fat, better sleep, stronger bones, less nervous system latency, right? So better hand-eye coordination, decision making, more mental stability, emotional stability, mental and emotional resilience, right? Things like this. Basically, the worst version of yourself, the fight or flight mode, or the best version of yourself. Regardless of what we do in life, right? The best strategies typically are going to give you the best results for all the things, the collective set of things. Right? And it also really starts with stress management. So y'all have heard me refer to or talk about things like magnesium and the benefits of that, zinc. You've heard me talk about things like 5-HTP, B complex, vitamin D, right? And you've heard me talk about GABA, things like this that are really important for recovery, taurine, L-theanine, right? Things like this. I talked about a lot of things that are conducive towards recovery. And all of these things are. So basically, the bottom level is going to be diet, having a solid diet that contains an abundance of these things that are geared towards improving that recovery, reducing stress, and things like that. And there's natural ways of doing it. So one thing that's really important too that your body develops is something called GABA, right? And when I've talked about GABA, I've talked about this mainly in supplement form, but there are ways to actually boost this in your diet. All right. GABA is one of those things. The reason why it's extremely important and it's super, super beneficial is because it facilitates recovery in a major way, right? It is one of the key compounds, chemical compounds in the body that is needed in order to turn down the temperature, bring down the excitement in the body so that you can get into, for example, deep sleep or just in a calmer state in general. It's the counter to fight or flight, right? So we talk about like cortisol, we talk about adrenaline, these stress hormones, right? And so when your cortisol and adrenaline are very beneficial, but in small dosages. So you're supposed to get a spike in these things followed by a very fast retracement. Right, so it's a spike up, sharp, and a spike down. It's supposed to be in a very small window. The problem with adrenaline and cortisol is when it's spiked up and it just stays elevated for a very prolonged period of time. That's a problem, right? And this is a sign of a feedback loop. You're stressed, so your stress hormones are up. But your stress hormones can't really come down because the stress is constantly there because there's nothing that's changing this signal, right? So in order for those spikes and those stress hormones to be more short-lived, we have to change this signal sooner than later. You don't want to wait too long, right? This is the reason why too you can eat in abundance. So for example, you can have like people who they're very lean, six-pack abs, vascular, tons of energy, all this type of stuff, sleep like a baby at night, right? And they eat like 3,600, 4,000 calories a day and can only be like 150, 160 pounds, even though they eat all this food. Meanwhile, you can have a person who's struggling to lose weight and they only eat like 1,200 calories a day and they still struggle to lose the weight. It just doesn't go anywhere. And so one of the rules that I always say is that either you're going to be fasted or well fed. You're either going to be doing one of the two. You don't really want to be in the middle where, you know, you're doing a calorie deficit, so you're not really eating too well, and you're not fasting either, so you're not optimized for that either. You're somewhere in the middle. And the rule of thumb, if you want to maximize benefits, a very important rule is do not diddle in the middle. Right? Don't diddle in the middle. Now, of course, whatever your strategy is, you will momentarily come to the middle, but you don't really want to stay there, right? Not for too long. Being somewhere in the middle is not a way to really actively pursue your goals in any meaningful way. It doesn't really particularly work, right? So don't diddle in the middle. So for example, if you started in January, 12-week fasting strategy, you're starting to come out of that now. Right? So heading into March, pretty much you would have fasted January, February, and then March, right? So either you're going to be coming out of it now because you did 8 weeks, or you're going to be coming out of it at the end of March, right? So pretty much you're going to be dropping the fasting strategy in April, and then you're going to start progressively increasing the amount of food that you eat. This is very important to talk about now because fasting is a big time stressor. Fasting is very good for actually benefiting from your stress hormones. Because basically what happens is, yes, fasting is a major stressor, so you get this increase in cortisol and adrenaline, but essentially what happens is your body shifts gears and really starts leveraging glutathione, right? Which is a natural antioxidant that your body produces to bring the stress down, right? Another thing is that your body boosts growth hormone via autophagy, right? So autophagy is basically like a cellular turnover where your body breaks down old, dead, damaged cells that are inflammatory in themselves and help to clear that out. You reduce your visceral fat, which is the fat that's directly on top of your vital organs, right? So your vital organs actually function better as a result, right, of having that diminishment in visceral fat. You also reduce the amount of stored fat in your liver, so this improves the functionality of your liver. So you get better triglycerides, you get better cholesterol, right? Because your body, let's say your body's producing way too much cholesterol. Well, if you're fasting, you're not taking in the fats and proteins that are used in order to create cholesterol, right? So basically, your body is not producing so much. Then there is the reduction in stored fat inside muscle tissue, right? Ectopic fat, which is one of the primary causes of insulin resistance and diabetes in the first place. So if you have liver congestion, excess ectopic fat, visceral fat, you have a lot of wasted metabolites, old, dead, and damaged cells in your body, well, fasting is really good to clear all that out, right? So it does serve its purpose for that reason. However, all good things must come to an end. And then we have to replace that fasting strategy with an eating strategy. And so to narrow the scope, basically getting back to GABA is one of those things that's really beneficial to leverage coming out of a fast. GABA is basically a thing that your body makes out of glutamate. Right? Glutamate, or glutamic acid, is a protein that you get from your foods. Right? Glutamate is an excitatory amino acid. Okay, so it's needed to facilitate alertness, neuroplasticity, learning, all this type of stuff. However, if you're in a fight or flight state, you're dealing with poor sleep quality, things like this, and you're coming out of a fast, you can experience excessive levels of glutamate. Okay? You could. Some people don't, some people do. It really depends. That glutamate is supposed to be regulated by the conversion of GABA. Right? So you get an increase in glutamate, then as the day goes on, that glutamate starts to convert into GABA. GABA is short for gamma alpha, a GABA aminobutyric acid. Right? And so basically it's needed to bring the temperature down, reduce stress, improve deep sleep, muscle growth. You get major increases in growth hormone, which is really beneficial for muscle growth, recovery from resistance training. GABA improves mental and emotional stability. It improves pancreatic health, particularly the insulin-producing beta cells of your pancreas. Right, so there's a lot of benefits to it. And it has this antagonistic relationship with cortisol. All right, so the increase in GABA reduces the presence of cortisol levels in your body. Right, so there's a pivot, there's a change off there. Now, of course, you need glutamate to facilitate GABA production, but you also need vitamin B6. Vitamin B6, right, pyridoxine, is needed to create that GABA in the first place, right? And then there are things that enhance the effects of GABA. So magnesium and zinc, for example. All right. Magnesium and zinc together increases your body's receptiveness to GABA. Because in order for GABA to actually be effective, it has to latch onto your cell's receptors. So the magnesium and the zinc help to improve the receptiveness of your cells to GABA, right? So it increases the effectiveness of it. So those are some of the primary nutrients that you would actually need to leverage to improve your GABA levels, right? Not just the level of GABA, but the effectiveness of it. You can actually map this out in food form, right? There's certain foods that help to boost these levels, right? So what I want to do first is go through, let's say, diet. So I'm going to pull up Chronometer, and I'm going to show you what this looks like in an actual plan. So give me a second here. Let me switch over to... All right. So we heading over to chronometer. All right. And I'm going to plug in some foods, and the food choice that I choose, I'm going to show y'all why I choose it, right, and what role it plays. All right, so first off, I'm like terrified to move my mic too, because this thing, sometimes the wire acts up. All right. So we're going to start with this here. We're going to go with... Actually, yeah, let's do this. We're going to start with honeydew. And with the honeydew, we're going to go with... I want to get my amounts right. Okay. We're going to start with 40 ounces of honeydew. And then we're going to go with the pumpkin seed kernels. Oh, pumpkin seeds, also known as pepitas. All right. And we're going to do... Yeah, we'll do about 2 ounces of it. All right. So now with this meal here, we got 734 calories for the first meal, 23 grams of protein, 111 grams of carbs, and 29 grams of fat. All right. So then we'll scroll down now. Look at this vitamin B6, 81%. So remember I was telling you about that B6. The vitamin B6 is needed in order for your body to create GABA in the first place. All right. So now we scroll down a little bit here. Now look, magnesium, 101%. And then we got the zinc, 49%. All right. So you see right out the gate here, and now look, tryptophan, 104%. Now tryptophan and GABA are a really good combination because tryptophan and GABA do similar things. Right? Not exactly the same, but similar, because tryptophan is the substrate for serotonin and melatonin production. Okay. The GABA can't really work if you have a serotonin deficiency. Right? So like a very common stack that is needed for, improving sleep, mental and emotional wellness is a combination of 5-HTP and GABA together. Right? 5-HTP is basically a form of tryptophan that is made inside your body from the dietary tryptophan that you consume. Interestingly enough, you also need vitamin B6 to create that. All right. So basically all of these amino acids that your body creates, like that 5-HTP, GABA, things like this, in order to create arginine, right, to convert citrulline into arginine, right, you also need vitamin B6 for that. So you see here some key things here. That tryptophan, the zinc, so all high levels, right? Magnesium, and then the vitamin B6. So this is a good start to the day here. And what you can also do is you can add in oolong tea. I don't know if I can. How do you spell oolong tea, by the way? Does anybody, do y'all know? I'm blanking on how to spell it.
I think it's OOLONG.
Is it?
Yeah, I think so. I'll Google.
Yeah, there we go. See, there you go. See, yeah, you're right. So oolong tea, and basically we'll put a cup. We put a cup of it in there. So let's say 8 fluid ounces. I don't know if it's going to show up with any kind of micronutrients in here, right? Manganese, interesting enough, 22%. So if you have a caffeine sensitivity, the oolong tea may be a little bit better than the matcha, right? You can also do ginkgo. So you can do ginkgo biloba as well. Right, so oolong tea, ginkgo, you can do ginseng, right? Those are really good. And the reason why is because those contain L-theanine. L-theanine also takes the edge off cortisol, right? So basically, you have things like tryptophan, GABA, and theanine. L-theanine also basically act in an antagonistic way that when these things increase, cortisol comes down, right? So it has a calming effect. Not a calming effect to the point where it puts you to sleep, but it takes the edge off, right? These are not sedatives. That's not what this is. All right. So this is a good start to the day here, for example. So like, let's say you wake up in the morning, your cortisol and adrenaline is high. You may want to actually leverage that by going for a walk in the morning or doing some type of workout in the morning. And basically what happens is the cortisol and the adrenaline spike in the morning, and it raises your blood sugar. And it causes a momentary increase in blood pressure. You can actually use those circumstances to engage in a workout. So this can be walking or it can be resistance band training. Now, essentially what happens is this is a means or a lifestyle hack to utilizing those circumstances. You're already in those stressors, so your body is primed for stress already. So you might as well use it, right? So your stressors, you can compress them together, right? So the stressor of waking up in the morning with the higher blood sugar, blood pressure, cortisol, etc., and then you can just enhance that effect by attaching the workout to it. So you top out the spike, and then you come down. Because what happens is as you work out, your body releases endorphins. Endorphins kind of counteract the cortisol and adrenaline spike, right? You've probably heard the term runner's high. Runner's high basically is the switch that you get when your body adapts to being in a state of exercise. Your body temperature increases, your blood flow increases, your blood pressure starts to drop, and you're utilizing the blood sugar, right? So your blood sugar is also starting to come down a little bit, so things level out. So the endorphins put a check on the stress hormones, and this facilitates better performance in your training, right? Whatever your workout is. Now, ideally, you would sustain your workout. It depends. Let's say for a walk, you'd probably walk for an hour, maybe an hour and a half. If you're doing resistance training, it would be somewhere in between 20 to 30 minutes, 10 minutes at the least. Then after your workout, you come down, and that's when you can have the tea and then the food. I would say to drink the tea first and then eat your food. All right. Now, a second one here. Let's say we get into bananas. Banana. 16 ounces of bananas. Okay. So let's say we do. I'm trying to think, what could we do here with this? Yeah, that's fine. So we'll do 16 ounces of bananas, and then we'll do. We could do 1 ounce of cashews. If you have a sensitivity to cashews, then you can do sunflower seed kernels. But let's say we do it depends. Let's say we do 2 ounces of cashews. So now this is 1,437 calories. But I wanted to highlight this meal here. So this meal is 701 calories, 13 grams of protein, 125 grams of carbs, and 23 grams of fat. Now look at this meal here. With the B6, once again, 91%. All right. And we scroll down here. Oh, by the way, the copper, 191%, is really important for nervous system recovery, as well as blood oxygenation. All right, but that's a whole other conversation. Magnesium, 64%. All right, so again, that magnesium needed in order to improve the potency and effectiveness of the GABA. right, so now we scroll down a little bit here. Now we got zinc. We got another 3 milligrams of zinc. That's 33% of our daily RDI. That's on top of the previous 49% from the first meal. And then look at here, tryptophan, 50%. All right, so we got 50%, another 50% on top of the previous, what was that, 81%, something like that of tryptophan. So really stacking them up here. So now if we combine the two meals at 1,437 calories there, we scroll down. All right, vitamin B6, 172%. Magnesium, 166%. Zinc, 9 milligrams, 82%. Men typically need around 10 to 13 milligrams of zinc per day. So basically for a woman, you only really need around 8 grams or so, right? 8 or 9 grams. So just keep that in mind. But we're up to 82% of my daily RDI of zinc. And we scroll down here, look at this. We got the tryptophan at 154%. All right. Now, what's interesting is as you raise your tryptophan levels, that's also conducive to raising your GABA levels. All right. They rise and fall simultaneously, generally speaking. All right. And a notable mention here, the vitamin B1, right? That's 80% so far. That vitamin B1 is really important for thyroid function and for your body to be able to utilize carbohydrates and fats for energy. All right, so that's needed for mental alertness. It's needed for insulin sensitivity. It's needed for brain function. It's needed for all that kind of stuff. Also, another notable mention here, folate, right? 81%. Folate is really important for maintaining the gray matter of your brain, right? Maintaining healthy infrastructure of your brain. Folate is really important for nervous system recovery and nerve repair. So is the thiamine as well. All right. So we get these two meals here. Now for a third meal, we're going to bring in the relevance of fermented foods. Okay, we got fermentation and germination. These two things are really important for improving GABA levels as well. Fermented foods and sprouted foods are really conducive for directly improving GABA levels. Your fermented foods will contain something called lactic acid bacteria, or LAB for short. That lactic acid bacteria produces GABA, okay? So basically GABA is a bit of a postbiotic, right? Because it's also created from gut bacteria. All right, so that's the importance of your fermented foods. So going into that, I'm going to go into some coconut yogurt. So let's say we do cocoa yo. So doing 8 ounces of that. And now what we're going to do here is we're going to throw in some chia seeds. And let's see here, we go for 3 tablespoons of chia seeds. And then we'll do, let's say we do kiwi. And we'll do, let's say 8 ounces of kiwi. We can do strawberries. And let's say we do 6 ounces of strawberries. We do blueberries. And let's say for blueberries, we do another 6 ounces of blueberries. All right. What else can we add in here? Maybe some raspberries, right? Raspberries or blackberries? What would y'all prefer me to do, raspberries or blackberries? I'll leave it up to the audience here.
Blackberries.
Blackberries, okay.
Yeah, blackberries.
So we'll do blackberries. We'll do 6 ounces of blackberries. There we go. All right. And so perfect. So this meal is 691 calories, 18 grams of protein, 117 grams of carbs, and 24 grams of fat. So you see the general theme here. Each meal is a little over 100 grams of carbs, and each meal is in between 20 and 30 grams of fat. Right. So this is all raw, by the way. So this is all raw foods. There's no cooking here that's required. So 2,128 calories so far, 54 grams of protein, 353 grams of carbs, and 77 grams of fat. All right. But let's highlight the micronutrients of this meal here now. So again, with the vitamin B6, it's 60%. That's on top of all of the other B6 we just gotten, right? Now look at this, fiber, 110% of our RDI, of my RDI in fiber. All right, look at that, 41 grams of fiber within this meal. Vitamin C, 402%, which by the way, if you have poor blood flow, let's say you have high blood pressure, let's say you have numbness or cold feet, neuropathy in your feet or hands, things like this, vitamin C is really important for that. Okay. If you have a history of excessive cholesterol, triglycerides, gout, acid reflux, right? These are things that are related to uric acid buildup in the body. So vitamin C helps to flush out the uric acid, right? It displaces that uric acid. All right. So the vitamin C also is needed for improving nitric oxide levels in your body, right? So basically vitamin C and arginine are needed in order to produce nitric oxide in your body. All right, so we got this vitamin C here at 402%, and that vitamin C improves blood flow, which causes vasodilation. Therefore, you get better detoxification of your cells, right? Because it improves the flow of blood. And that will also expedite the process of synthesis and delivery of vital nutrients to your cells, right? And that's really important for reducing the cortisol levels and having more of a calming effect, because anything that is anti-inflammatory or reduces waste accumulation in your body will therefore bring down the temperature and reduce the adrenaline and cortisol. All right, so it's important to know there. Look at this vitamin K, 136%. That vitamin K is actually really important for calcium delivery. All right. This is relevant if you have, let's say, a history of gall sludge, gallstones, kidney stone formation, atherosclerosis, stiffening or hardening of arteries, this type of thing, right? Or calcification of, let's say, your pineal gland, right? Calcification of your pineal gland is a very real thing, by the way. So you'll have people like spiritual gurus and things like that. They'll talk about, oh, you got to open up your third eye and decalcify your pineal gland, right? And it may sound like woo-woo kind of stuff to you, like, oh, this is mystical, kind of whatever, people talk about with that, right? So you may dismiss it if you're more of like a technical person, or that's just too out there for you, but they're kind of right. It is true, right? Now, when people refer to your pineal gland as your third eye, it's like, well, it's kind of technically true, but is it a third eye per se? Maybe, because basically your pineal gland plays a large role in how you feel emotions. And that's going to largely influence the way you behave as a person. It's going to influence your decision making. It's going to influence your interpretation of life. It's going to influence mental and emotional wellness, right? So when you decalcify your pineal gland, or you have a healthy functioning pineal gland, you'll feel emotions a lot more deeply. And this opens up your ability to have a higher level of EQ, which is emotional quotient. This facilitates you having stronger, healthier emotional connections to people, to food, to your environment in general. A healthy pineal gland facilitates a more joyful and peaceful life. And this is where you have your spiritual gurus. They're kind of right? Because your pineal gland and the health of your pineal gland, or the sensitivity to it, largely is going to determine your perception of life and the events there within. All right. So vitamin K, really important for that. All right. Calcium delivery is extremely important, okay? Because what you don't want is, you don't want calcium not being sent to your bones and muscle tissue, and instead it's being sent towards, let's say your thyroid or your pineal gland, or it's being used to form stones, or it's calcifying arteries or things like that, right? Because the calcium is not being shipped to the right places, right? So there's that. Vitamin K affects a lot more than just like blood clotting. And then here, calcium, 55% of our daily calcium within our meals, right? So we don't need a whole lot of calcium in our diet. It's not really particularly that beneficial to have a lot of calcium in your diet. It's more important to control the flow of calcium and preserving your calcium structures within your body. All right. So important things to know about. Now look at this, omega-3 essential fatty acids, 400%. So our omega-6 is at 108% and the omega-3 is at 400%. So this basically puts our omega-3 to omega-6 ratio at a 4-to-1 ratio. Generally speaking, a good ratio is a 3-to-1 ratio, but 4-to-1 also is a really good ratio. I also have to note, going back to the vitamin K thing and the calcium thing, vitamin C is going to be really important, because vitamin C combined with citrulline facilitates more nitric oxide production. And that nitric oxide is needed for healthy digestion. Okay? Nitric oxide and vasodilation is extremely important for your gut. Basically, your gut endothelial layer, or your gut endothelium, basically is the intestinal endothelium, in particular, your gut-blood barrier. You need dilation and healthy blood flow, right, to your intestinal endothelium in order to adequately pull nutrients from your food and into your bloodstream. Right? So as you get more blood flow to your gut, that facilitates better digestion of your food. Okay? If you have poor blood flow to your gut, this can result in excessive, let's say, nitrogen and hydrogen accumulation in your gut and low oxygen in your gut, which can cause you to be gassy and bloated and things like this. So more blood flow to your gut leads to a more adequate level of stomach acid, digestive enzymes, as well as a more thorough breakdown of the food and extraction of nutrients from that food and into your bloodstream. All right. So people with gut health issues, they do very well with a high vitamin C diet, and that's one of the main reasons why. All right. So moving down here, and y'all heard me talk about this before, high levels of copper and iron. Look at this, the copper, 411%. Well, first of all, let me scroll up here, make sure this is highlighted correctly. All right, there we go. So the copper and the iron, the copper is at 110% just in this meal, and iron is at 121%. And then the vitamin C, 402%. This is extremely important. This is extremely important if you're anemic or have low hemoglobin, right? In order to create red blood cells and increase hemoglobin and ferritin levels and all that, you need vitamin C, copper, and iron together. All right. So this coconut yogurt with the berries and the chia seeds and all that, really important if you have issues like that. So scrolling down here, now magnesium 53%, right? A whole 222. Yep, a whole 222 milligrams of magnesium, right? So half your daily RDI in magnesium is coming from this meal alone. And that magnesium, again, really important to improve your cell's receptiveness to the GABA. Zinc, 2.9 milligrams, so basically 3 milligrams, 27%, a little over a quarter of your daily RDI of zinc. And then look here, tryptophan, 50% of your tryptophan, just 0.2 grams of tryptophan in this meal. Right, so you get an abundance of that there as well in that meal. Right. So of course, if we scroll down and look at everything, we already got a full nutrient profile. We just need a little bit more lysine, which we're going to get in a second. All right. So we've got now, within these 3 meals so far, we got 11, basically 12 milligrams of zinc. We've got 919 milligrams, basically 219% of magnesium. We got 245% of iron and 411% of copper. Right, so we peaked out. Look, we got the vitamin K at 182%, vitamin C at 692%. Look at this. So basically, this diet plan is doing gangbusters so far at 2,128 calories. Right, all raw foods. And we're keeping the dietary carbs and fats at a 3-to-1 ratio still, right? So still at that 3-to-1 ratio. So carbohydrates at 61%, fats at 30%, and protein at 9%, at 54 grams of protein. Now, if you're a woman, pretty much you can pack it up here. This is great for women right here. And that's enough lysine for women as well, right? So this is matched to me, so my nutrient requirements are going to be a lot higher. All right. Now for the vitamin D, let's say we add in vitamin D3 supplementation. All right, so I'll just choose the company Thorne here. So we'll say we do 5,000 IUs and we do 1 capsule, boom. And that covers our vitamin D3. Right, that 5,000 IUs of vitamin D3, that gives us 833% of our D3. Right? Pretty significant dosage there, so we got that covered. Now, one thing to note too is there are some holes in the diet here so far, which we're going to fix up. So look at this vitamin A, 7%. We can definitely get that number up. Vitamin E is a little low. We can get that number up. B2, we can get that up as well, right? And then the calcium, we can get that up a little bit more as well. And the lysine, right? So this is where now we get into our 4th meal here. All right. So I covered the vitamin B6, the zinc, the magnesium in this diet plan so far. I covered the omega-3. I covered the tryptophan. Right, so we got into fermented foods, we got into fruits and the nuts and seeds that are important for those things. Now we're going to get into our green leafy vegetables. The green leafy vegetables are also really important for GABA synthesis as well, right? The actual creation of GABA itself. All right, so let's say we do 3 ounces of the spinach. Let's say we do 3 ounces of kale. We'll do a bit of a mix here. All right, give me 1 second. So your leafy green vegetables, basically, they contain the GABA in and of itself. Interestingly enough, so do sweet potatoes. All right. Also, a quick note here. The reason why these leafy green vegetables are so important, you scroll down here and look at this. The vitamin A, 52%. So we're already getting into that there. All right. So everything all the way collectively together, we got 59% of our vitamin A so far. And then look at the calcium, 82%. Right? And then look at this, the vitamin B2, 72%, just by adding in those leafy greens, right? So, and the lysine, we added on an additional 10% onto the lysine. All right, so this is the importance of those leafy greens. They definitely do matter. All right, but anyways, let's get back to this here. Now in this salad here, what we're going to do is we're going to add in some hemp seeds. We're going to add in 3 tablespoons, and then we're going to add a sprouted food. All right, so let's add in a sprouted food, and we'll add in, let's say, 4 ounces of green lentils. And now let's add in some nutritional yeast. And for the nutritional yeast, we'll add in 2 tablespoons of that. What else can we do with this meal here? Let's add in some bell pepper. Y'all know how I like my bell pepper. Red onion, do a couple ounces of that. And let's make things interesting. Let's do some lion's mane mushrooms. This is not going to be the right. This isn't going to give me the right micros for lion's mane mushrooms, I don't think. Let's see if it does. Close enough, but not. It doesn't quite. It's got some things missing, but that's fine. Lion's mane mushroom is also really important for mental health and brain chemistry and all that kind of stuff as well, right? And it also boosts GABA production inside your body. All right. So in this salad so far, we got the spinach, we got the kale, we got the hemp seeds, we got lentils. Let's see, what else can I add into here? We can also add in, actually, you know what we can also do? We can add in, it's gonna be a big salad right here. So we add in 4 ounces of cucumber, right? Get a little silica in the diet there. All right, so far we got 2,612 calories here. 89 grams of protein. No protein powder needed, y'all. No plant-based milks, no protein powders, no none of that, right? This is all raw foods, by the way. So when people's like, oh, you know, you can't get protein in a raw vegan diet. No, that's not true, right? So look at this, 89 grams of protein, 415 grams of carbs, 94 grams of fat, right? So we got that 4-to-1 ratio with the fats. So look at this, carbs 58%, fats 30%, protein 11%, right? So we got some good macros going on there. And now look what we got here. So we hit our niacin, we hit our vitamin B2. Look at this vitamin B2, 622%. Largely that's going to be the nutritional yeast here. That nutritional yeast makes up for like 485% of the vitamin B2. Lion's mane, also very rich in vitamin B2 as well, that riboflavin, right? And then 23% coming from the kale and 13% coming from the spinach. Now look at this, the bell peppers, 12%, and the lentils, 11%. All right. So we got that folate up there. Look at that, 311%. The vitamin A should be a bit higher. I think the vitamin A should be higher if it's orange bell peppers. Orange bell pepper is going to contain a little bit more of your beta carotene. All right. You can also, by the way, you can do butternut squash. So let's say we add that here. Let's make it interesting. Butternut. We can add some butternut squash, and let's say we don't want to go crazy with it necessarily. Let's say we add 4 ounces of butternut squash. And you can basically do like thinly diced butternut squash or something like this, right? If you don't want to cook it, you just didn't slice it. And now look at this. We hit 150%, right? Butternut squash makes up 70%, right? That butternut squash is a big deal when it comes to the carotenoids needed for the vitamin A production in the body. Vitamin E, look at that, 98%, close enough. Calcium, 96%. So we're hitting everything here all together. And look at this, omega-3 essential fatty acids, 612%. Right? So omega-3 is at 612%, and omega-3 is at 612%, and the omega-6 is at 161%. All right, and we got our zinc here. Look at the zinc, 18, basically 19 milligrams, so 171%. All right, magnesium, 322%. So we're definitely hitting it out the park with these numbers. Tryptophan, 263%. And we hit our lysine at 132%. All right. The reason why I focus so much on the micronutrients in terms of diet is concerned, the reason why I focus on this so much is because before we even really consider supplementation, look at what we can do with our diet. Look how potent we can make our diet. Look at this fiber, 229%, 87 grams of fiber in this diet. Look at this. All raw, and you don't need no cooked foods here. All right. In the community, we do these types of coaching calls every week. You also, in addition to that, you get my high raw vegan nutrition guide, my fasting guide, my Tribe Flex resistance band and bodyweight training series, my daily mobility Tribe Flow series, my mindset and self-development series. There's a lot of stuff that comes with joining the community. Right? So if this is the type of stuff you were looking for, this is the type of actionable information that you need, as well as the community and the support that comes along with it, definitely hit the link in the description of this video to jump in. And I'll see you on the other side. You can really pack that into that salad. So basically the salads are beautiful because you can mix so many different things into them. Now, basically, for the taco salad, what you can do is you can add in nutritional yeast, some taco seasoning, some smoked paprika, some cayenne pepper, a little sea salt, brown sugar. You can add a little agave with the nutritional yeast, and you can add in a little bit of tomato sauce. You can put all of these things in like a small dish, right? And you can mix it up to make a dressing. Okay. So the tomato sauce, you can even add a little basil. So tomato sauce, a little basil, sea salt, raw sugar or agave, or you can also add what else? Date syrup if you want. Smoked paprika, cayenne pepper. You can add in a little bit of garlic powder, nutritional yeast. You can also add in like a little bit of turmeric, like a 1/4 teaspoon of turmeric. And you can mix it up in a little dish to make a dressing, and then mix that into your salad. All right. And that's how you do that. That's how you do that salad right there. You can also, if you kind of want to thicken the base a little bit, or you want to make it a little bit more savory, you can also add a really high quality extra virgin olive oil. Not a whole lot, so maybe like a 1/2 teaspoon or something like that to it into the salad. You can I don't mind adding a little bit of oil to a salad on a raw vegan diet because you're not cooking with it. All right, so there are some like really good antioxidants in olive oil, actually. Right, so I don't mind it if it's raw. I mean, if you're cooking with it, it's not really the same thing, right? Because then you're degrading it when you cook with it. All right. So yeah, that's basically going to be the deal with that. Now, for me, that's adequate for me, that 2,600 calories a day. I mean, that works for me because basically, for me personally, I should be eating at least 2,400, preferably 2,600 calories a day. If it's a more active day, it should probably be somewhere along the lines of 2,800 to 3,000. That's just for me to operate at my best. If I eat, below that, that's not really going to go very well. Well, not that it's going to go very well, but it's not optimized. All right. So that's pretty much the deal with that. So if you wanted to know, hey, how do I raise my GABA levels naturally and bring down cortisol? A diet plan like that is going to do it. So you can go into your Chronometer account and you can plug in those foods. You would just have to adjust the portion sizes according to what your nutritional needs are, because yours are going to be a bit different than mine. All right. But that is the raw vegan mental health diet. That also works very well for vegan bodybuilders. So if you're trying to drop body fat and build muscle mass and really improve your sleep quality, something like that's going to really do it. All right. Moving on to supplementation. Now, if you really wanted to, let's say you're at a bit of a deficit, you really want to enhance the effects of this whole plan. You can supplement with ginkgo biloba or ginseng in the morning with your first meal. You drink the oolong tea. It's very powerful right there. You get a lot of L-theanine doing that. Okay. You can also swap out the oolong tea for burdock root tea. Burdock root tea is really good for detoxification of your liver and your kidneys, and burdock root helps to improve the flow through your lymphatic system. Generally speaking, if your GABA levels are low, if you're struggling to stay in deep sleep at night, right? If you struggle with deep sleep at night, that's one of the major signs that you can have a bit of a GABA deficiency, right? If you're always in fight or flight mode, you're dealing with let's say you're dealing with a lot of pain, maybe neuropathy, edema, frequent nighttime urination, things like this, then likely you can use a bit of a boost in your GABA. All right. Let's say you only sleep maybe 3 or 4 hours a night or something like this. That could also be a sign, right? Or you keep waking up frequently in the middle of the night. You're waking up with heart palpitations, things like this. Heart palpitations also are a sign of low GABA. So GABA, by the way, GABA can also be very beneficial for AFib. All right. Now moving on to supplementation. So we've got the ginseng and the ginkgo with the burdock root tea with your first meal in the morning. Then you can have, with that second meal, let's say the bananas and the cashews, you can have vitamin D with that. The vitamin D is really important because your body needs vitamin D in order to absorb nutrients from your food. People have low vitamin D. They often have difficulty pulling nutrients from their food. All right. By the way, vitamin D is also important to pull calcium from your food. So you may just straight up not absorb calcium from your food if your vitamin D levels are too low. So low vitamin D is often associated with gas, bloating, constipation, lethargia, and things like this. And low vitamin D is also associated with neurodegenerative and osteodegenerative disease, basically bone disease, right? Because you're not taking up enough calcium. So basically vitamin D is really important for absorbing calcium and sending calcium to the right places. Okay, magnesium also does the same thing, but interestingly enough, you need magnesium in combination with vitamin D in order to direct traffic of that calcium. Also, calcium is a buffer against excess acid accumulation. All right, so is magnesium. So if your magnesium is low, your calcium has to make up the difference. So a way that you better utilize calcium so you need less of it is by increasing your magnesium levels. Not to get into a tangent too much about calcium, but it's a thing that's important to know, especially if you have, like, let's say, excessively elevated cholesterol. All right. Because what you don't want is you don't want poor calcium flow combined with high cholesterol, because that increases your risk of atherosclerosis, or plaque buildup in your arteries. So basically, we got the vitamin D supplementation covered there. And then lastly, you can do supplementation of 5-HTP and GABA combined at night before you go to bed. And you can combine the GABA and 5-HTP with magnesium biglycinate. So you can actually get GABA in a powder form, and you can add in GABA, about like a gram of it or so, anywhere from 500 to 1,000 grams of it. You add that to your water, and you add in the magnesium biglycinate. It's typically going to be like around 2-3 grams or something like that of powder, basically 1 scoop of the magnesium biglycinate. You can also combine that with creatine. You can do like 5 grams of creatine. And lastly, you can then add in HMB, right? And that is I'm blanking on what it's short for. HMB, hydroxymethylbutyrate. It's a metabolite that occurs in the body, or that is made inside the body from leucine. Right? But HMB is extremely beneficial to increasing insulin sensitivity, growth hormone, sleep quality, all that kind of stuff. This HMB is also is very beneficial to muscle growth, raising testosterone, freeing up healthy levels of estrogen. So it's beneficial for women in their estrogen levels, and it's very beneficial for men in their testosterone levels. Right, both total and free testosterone. Right, so you need both. And the HMB is really important for regulating prolactin and kisspeptin synthesis and secretion in the HPA axis. Right, so you have your HPA axis, your hypothalamus, pituitary, and adrenal glands. And so when your HPA is turned up, you get an increase in adrenaline and cortisol. You can also get like hyperaldosterone, where you're getting like an excessive level of aldosterone secretion. So you can get like swelling in your face, like puffy cheeks and swelling and whatnot around here. That's typically a result of dehydration and excessive levels of sodium consumption in relation to potassium. Right. But anyways, when you basically dial down the HPA axis, you get higher levels of something called kisspeptin, which is really important for improving all of the recovery and muscle growth and fat burn and lowering blood pressure and blood sugar to a healthy level, all this type of stuff, right? It works similar to like sun exposure, right? So sun exposure gives you higher levels of kisspeptin also. And it's really important, especially for men. It's really important for regulating and controlling prostate size, testicular health. For women, it's ovarian health. It's needed for having healthy levels of progesterone and estrogen in women. It's really important for having adequate levels of free testosterone in men. right? So it does all of these different things in your brain chemistry. It's really important. So HMB works very well when you combine it with creatine, particularly in the muscular environment, right? So like HMB is actually a very common bodybuilding supplement, but it works very well medicinally as well. And it works very well with GABA, right? Because the HMB, the HTP, the 5-HTP, which also you can take in supplementation with the GABA, and the GABA itself, all of these things facilitate recovery and deep sleep, right? So it's a lot of supplementation basically in water. You can get like a few ounces of water and you put in your GABA, your creatine, your magnesium, your HMB, right? And then you can take 5-HTP in a capsule. You don't necessarily have to take 5-HTP with it. But if you really want to have like some crazy deep sleep, you want something really potent, you may want to try that. And the 5-HTP, you only really need about 200 grams of it. 200 milligrams of it. Right? And the GABA could be anywhere from 500 to 1,000 milligrams. Basically a half a gram or a whole gram of GABA. 5-HTP, a good dosage of it at night before bed is like 2 grams, right? And then the creatine is like 5 grams. All right, and so all of these things really facilitate deep sleep, and the deep sleep is needed for pain management, muscle growth, blood sugar control, insulin sensitivity, nervous system recovery, hormonal regulation, all that kind of stuff. It's extremely important. If you're not getting the deep sleep, you're going to be in pain. It's going to be very difficult to drop body fat and build muscle. All these things are going to be very difficult. All right. And if you wanted to, I think this is more beneficial for people who deal with chronic infections or men with low testosterone, and it is zinc supplementation. You may want to supplement with zinc picolinate. So this could be anywhere from like 50 to like 30 milligrams of zinc picolinate. This can be very beneficial for people who are diabetic, men with low testosterone, people who deal with frequent infections, like if you get sick a lot. Zinc helps to improve lymphatic flow as well. Zinc is also needed for white blood cell synthesis in the body, right? So zinc is really important for strengthening your immune system. And zinc is also important for preserving your insulin-producing beta cells of your pancreas. So to maintain a healthy pancreas, it's important to have a healthy amount stored inside your pancreas. You store a lot of your zinc inside your pancreas. Zinc is also needed for muscle growth and bone density increases. Zinc is a big deal in a whole variety of reasons. So definitely something there to consider as well. You don't have to supplement with these things, but I'm just saying it can be very beneficial. Now, this is going to be very individualized from person to person. Also, by the way, dealing with viruses or bacterial infections, zinc is also really important for that. All right. Now, the reason why a raw vegan diet is also really beneficial too, especially if you're dealing with viruses or bacterial infections, is because you don't get this excessive level of protein consumption, right? Which can then feed bacterial growth and feed viral synthesis, right? So basically, you eat too much protein, it increases the viral load if you are fighting a viral infection. All right. So, people can be eating animal products and things like this, and you're getting a lot of glycine and glutamine in your diet. You're getting a lot of methionine or cysteine in your diet also. Like these different amino acids can significantly worsen these issues, right? Cancer really feeds on glycine, glutamine, methionine, cysteine, right? These types of things. All right. Also arginine in some cases. Different cancers work in different ways, but basically cancer growth is really turbocharged with excessive protein consumption. So with a raw vegan diet, it's more so optimized for vitamins and minerals and important enzymes and antioxidants and things, right? And it's maximized for energy, but not necessarily protein consumption. So this is one of the major benefits of a raw diet. It's highly, highly medicinal and very energy rich.